I'm Managing Director for Sterling, based here in the UK, looking after UK, Europe, Middle East. It's my pleasure to have Joe Scott with me as well.
Hi.
Joe is from the LEGO Group. So what we hope to do in the next half an hour or so is tell you a bit of a story, actually. So Sterling and LEGO Group have been working together for a couple of years now on a really significant, really impactful, really mission-critical project for the LEGO Group. So we just wanted to tell that story. As we head into that, just to introduce you to Sterling a little bit, our mission is to provide the foundation of trust and safety that our clients need to create great environments for their most essential resource. It's people. We believe, first and foremost, that everyone has the right to feel safe. That's the why behind what we do. And as the CIPD champion better work and working lives for everyone, as we learn more about Joe and the LEGO Group's mission as well, that's everybody's starting point. That's our why here at Sterling, is that everyone has the right to feel safe. What does that mean when we get into our day-to-day work? It means that we're one of the world's largest background and identity service providers. It means that we process 75 million searches every year all across the world. It means that as people go into new jobs everywhere in the world, they interact with Sterling. We are a critical part of our clients' programs as it relates to hiring velocity, hiring compliance, onboarding experiences, and at the heart of that, first and foremost, is about feeling safe in every context, whether that's in the office, whether that's at home and utilizing service providers coming to your home. All the different ways in which we interact with one another. It's about driving cultures and environments of safety. So, Joe.
Hello, hi, great to be here. Thanks everyone for coming and joining the session.
Yeah, tell us a bit about your role at the LEGO Group. What is it that you do?
Sure, okay, so I'm Joe Scott, I'm Global Project Manager for Child Safeguarding within the LEGO Group. So what that effectively means is, of course, as you know, the LEGO Group are all about toys for children, and we are still family owned. We're owned by the original family who created LEGO almost 80 years ago now. It's fourth generation family owned, and the family themselves have a really strong belief and commitment to children's rights and to children's safety. So back in 2014, we signed a partnership agreement with UNICEF, where we're taking that value-based commitment out of just conversation and into the practical day-to-day of our work. So we're ensuring that everything that we do supports child safety and children's rights. And then we started to then put together a framework of how to make sure we're keeping children safe. Part of that framework was the product, so the brick itself, and making sure that that's safe for kids to play with, but also really big focus on environmental sustainability, because of course our product is plastic. So we're looking at lots of ways to make that a much more sustainable product, including plant-based LEGO, which is going to come out into our stores next year, which is super exciting. And then my role, which comes into everybody in the organization who interacts with children, making sure that they're safe to do so. So what we needed to do was implement a global framework for child safeguarding background screening to make sure anybody engaging with kids didn't have, anything in their background that we wouldn't want to see if someone's working with children. And that was where our partnership with Sterling came in.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And I know we've had lots of opportunities to talk over the last few years. And one of the things that I've always noticed when talking with you is how infectious your love of all things LEGO Group is, especially the values. So maybe you can share with the audience a bit about what does living the values at the LEGO Group look like? Yeah,
absolutely. It's a great question. Well, you'll see here that we've got children are our role models, and that's, for want of a better expression, it's our motto within the LEGO Group. So we're looking at being strategic leaders in the world around learning through play. That's really important to us, about how you empower children through play to learn, to be confident and to grow, and then to go on and build a world that reflects that. But also what that means is that for all of us in our day-to-day work, we're looking at how can we bring play into what we do. So our values are about creativity, fun, learning, integrity and quality. They're our key values. So one of the most important things when we started this whole project to roll out a global framework was finding a partner that we could work with who understood that this piece of work for us is values-based. So, there are a lot of companies who run different pre-hire screens, and they might be about compliance or they might be about a qualification check. But for us, it was really about bringing these value base into life. And a few people asked us, actually, when we started doing this, has there been an incident? Is there a reason why you're suddenly putting this child safeguarding into practice? And the answer to that was no. It's just we want to take it, that next step and make it business as usual. So that was really key when we actually came to partner with Sterling, was your understanding that it wasn't about compliance, it was about a value-based piece of work.
Yeah, great. So if we rewind a couple of years, this project begins, putting people into the heart of your child safeguarding framework all over the world. Tell us a bit about some of the challenges that you've encountered along the way.
Oh, yeah, many, many. So what's been really exciting with this project is that it's been brand new for the toy sector. We've been the first company in the toy sector to introduce child safeguarding screening, which is fantastic, but it's been a complete greenfield for us. So we haven't had any blueprint that we could look at and say, what have IKEA done, or what have whoever, Nintendo done? Like, no one else has done it yet. So we're figuring this whole thing out as we have gone along, and that's been my role, really, to kind of work this whole thing out. I think the biggest challenges have been that it's a global framework, and what we want to establish as much as possible is a global minimum standard for child safeguarding screening. But in every country, it's slightly different. So how you screen, for example, in the UK, that's DBS. In other countries, it's a police check. In other countries, it's a criminal check. In some countries, you actually can't do anything at all. So kind of how do you build a global framework with the differences in every single country, but then also data privacy, massive at the moment, and and will continue to always be massive. So very different kind of cultural regulations or expectations around how people share and manage and store their data. So I think that's been our biggest challenge, actually, is trying to find a consistent framework with a global minimum standard that both adheres to what we need in every country, but is also sensitive to how our candidates feel about sharing their data in every country, because of course you have to have the data to then run the screen. So that's been the key balance that we've had to strike.
So understanding some of that complexity then, it's not a kind of out of the box, make it happen type piece of work. What's the process been for you and your team in terms of understanding what good looks like and then implementing that as well?
Yeah, there's been a lot of trial and error, and I think that's the case in any project, in any brand new piece of work. You have to be okay with the fact that some things are not going to work, and you have to pilot, you have to test, you have to learn, and then come back and put in something else. So I think the biggest thing has been being okay with that process. And that I think you were often surprised along the way. So I was setting up this on a global basis. We're the LEGO Group, we're a Danish company. My expectation was that Denmark was going to be one of the simplest countries to roll out in. It actually ended up being the most one of the most complicated, which I did not see coming at all. So from a project management perspective, I ended up spending considerably longer than I had scheduled on my project schedule timeline on Denmark than I did on, for example, China or Japan, which I thought were going to be complicated and was super easy. So we go in with expectations, but I think that's project management, isn't it? You have to be flexible, you have to be able to shift and change. Yeah. But certainly going at it from an approach of some things are going to not work, and that's okay. We just learn from it and we move forward. Yeah. And you have to do that when you're building something completely new. Yeah.
And I think from Sterling's perspective as well, we've definitely learned a lot on this journey too, because I think what you're doing, as you've mentioned, is quite new really in terms of driving that kind of consistent, equivalent approach everywhere. And I think within the background and identity services industry, actually the starting point is often breadth. It's, I can cover 240 countries, yes, I've got it. But actually, when you're looking at enhanced checks or the equivalency of those checks, the way you might understand it in the UK, how do you achieve the same output in other countries everywhere? Yeah. Actually, that being able to listen to what you need and translate that into local market solutions globally it's been part of our journey as well. It's something that we've really enjoyed doing with you, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the challenge now, I mean, now we're live globally, which is fabulous. It's been an 18-month journey, and we are live with background screening for roles that engage with children, which in the LEGO Group is around 30% of our roles. And that doesn't include our stores, by the way. So our LEGO retail stores are a separate project. So this is all roles internally that engage with children, which are things like local community engagement, in marketing, product insights and testing. We have focus groups with kids. We have lots of events that go on in our offices, and we call them our hub hosts, so our office managers and events managers. Those guys will all have interaction with kids. So it's about 30% of our roles. I completely forgot where I was going with that sentence. But yeah, so outside of our LEGO brand retail stores. So it's about that, all of those roles that interact.
Yeah, and
with
understanding
children.
then how all of that kind of comes together and recognizing kind of the great resignation, like
Yeah.
so many reasons for people to not start a job or leave a job. This, I guess for some of us, this could sound like it just puts another barrier in the hiring and onboarding process. So I'm just wondering
Yes.
how has it impacted your hiring and onboarding program?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we've been really careful about that, and we've really made sure that our candidates understand the whole way through that this is about part of what it's about to work at the LEGO Group. So we've always recruited from a very kind of values-based perspective, and the people who are cultural match and a cultural alignment with the group. So we are very upfront about it. So in all of our adverts now for external roles, we have a section at the bottom that says we ask people to take part in child safeguarding screening if they're in a role that engages with children. So we're upfront about it from the beginning. Two reasons for that. I mean, partly to prepare the candidates, but also partly so that if anybody is thinking about applying to be close to children for a negative reason, we're saying upfront from the beginning, this isn't the place to try to do that. This isn't the place to apply. And then we let our candidates know all the way through that this is part of their offer stage as well.
Yep.
And then we've worked really closely with Sterling to make sure the comms that go out to the candidates at offer stage are LEGO branded. We've got a video, a little welcome video that says congratulations on your offer. This is the final stage. We do this because children are our role models, because this is so important to us. And we have found that people have been super engaged with it and actually found it a really positive addition to the process.
Yeah, great. And so we're in the tech and innovation theatre as
Yeah.
well. So thinking also about then, okay, on this journey, what part has technology played and or technology enabled service provision? Like how have you pieced external providers and solutions together to help you achieve what you've needed to?
Yeah, well, we are in the process of changing our internal people technology at the moment. So we're currently with SAP. We're in the process of implementing Workday. And I think, we're quite open and we're quite honest about the fact that our candidate application technology is not the greatest. It's okay, it's clunky, it's not super great. So we're really working on that. And this is a little of the reason as well why for our recruitment experience, we really focus on the values-based experience for the candidate. So what our aim is that even if you don't get the role, everybody goes away, everyone who's been through an interview process goes away saying, I had a great experience with the LEGO Group, whether you get the role or not. So that's our goal. Workday, when it comes in, will help make that technological experience much smoother for the candidate. And then once we've got Workday in place, we're looking to integrate then with Sterling and integrate those two platforms so that the whole process becomes a lot more automated and it just becomes easier. And that's the goal all the time with our candidates, is that you have an easy, enjoyable experience.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. So if anybody's listening and maybe they're thinking about background checks, maybe they're not where you are yet, which is values-driven decisions around that part of the hiring process. Maybe it feels more like a complicated, obstructive step. What advice would you give to anybody that is thinking about building this kind of safeguarding element in, whether it be for children or just for general population so that everyone feels safe? What advice would you give to anyone here based on the experience you've had?
Yeah, I think the really key thing is to drill down on why you're doing it. There's always an argument for compliance and for risk management and risk mitigation, but you need to ask yourself what's actually important. What is the risk? So for our case in the LEGO Group, that was very clear. The risk is lack of safety to children and breach of children's rights. So that was the underpinning reason why. And I think when you're implementing a global project like this, and you know, it's quite complicated. You're looking at different processes in different countries. You've got to get a lot of stakeholders on board. You then have to shift, which is where we are now at the LEGO Group, from project status to business as usual status. There's a lot of people have to be bought into that. So you need to get everybody bought into the why of why you're doing it. And to be really honest, no one's going to get excited if you say for compliance, like how dry, how dull, you know? So there has to be a reason why. And for us, that was about children and children's rights. So finding the why for your company, why it matters and connects back to your values, I think is really key.
Yeah.
And then actually being realistic about what you can do at a time. So I gave myself 2 years on this project for rolling out globally, and we did it piece by piece, country by country. The approach we took was a big scoping piece of work to look at where the majority of people who engage with children are based geographically. So for us, that was Denmark, of course, because that's our headquarters, and then UK, Singapore, and the US. So they were my first countries. And then from there, we went region by region. So you just, you've got to kind of make a decision about how you're going to approach the rollout, because you can't possibly do everything all at once. And as we mentioned earlier, there's going to be trial and error. You're going to need to look and adjust and tweak and then go back and re-pilot in places. And that's all okay. Yeah. So I think approaching all of it from a learning mindset is also really important.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And what's next? Is there another iteration of this? What's coming next?
Yeah, so what's coming next is the LEGO Group is made up of a range of different entities. So there's the LEGO brand stores, which of course you will all know about. And there's our LEGO Group, which is our actual business, our operating business. So our logistics and our supply chain and all of these pieces of work. So they are the pieces that's been rolled out to so far. LEGO brand retail is now going to come in the first half of next year. And then our big focus, so our next strategic period runs up until the end of 2025, and we have a big focus on becoming the leaders of learning through play for children. And the way that we're going to do that is through really expanding all of the funding that goes into community programs where we work with disadvantaged kids, we support educational programs for kids, and we're looking at expanding all of that local community engagement and social impact partnership engagement. So all of that naturally is going to mean lots of engagement with children and the need to really ramp up and ensure that many, many people have our child safeguarding screening.
Yeah.
So that's our next really big focus. So we've been incredibly lucky during lockdown. We've been delivering results that have been completely unexpected. I think everyone's been ordering Lego sets online during lockdown. So from a business perspective, we've been very, very strong. Yeah. And we're able then to reinvest some of that profit into our social impact for kids around the world. So that's our next goal. Brilliant.
So grateful you could share the story with us today. And I guess your story is one of so many, right? As we look out over the last couple of years, many HR professionals, leading organizations are experiencing change in ways that we didn't anticipate. And so what does a safe environment look like as we go forward? What does it look like to hire safely in a remote context? How can technology help us with that as well? Sterling are really proud to be driving forward on initiatives like digital identity, using right to work, having technology identity really become the cornerstone of the whole background screening process, so that as you validate identity right at the beginning, those attributes of your identity kind of flow through, make it much easier to do a comprehensive background check. Because just like for Joe and the LEGO Group, this focus on children is so important. Different organizations in different sectors, in different countries around the world, will have a different why for doing it. Yeah. Child safeguarding may not be relevant in every organization, but the need to hire right now is pretty much universal, and the way in which we do that is changing. And so considering technology and tech-enabled service providers like Sterling is one way to try and mitigate the risk of losing safety in your hiring process as things change significantly. Here are a few takeaways, things that we've heard from Joe over the course of this last few minutes, but making sure that everything you do is anchored around your values, underpinning everything you have as part of your process, why you're doing it being the main reason for doing the thing. That can apply in terms of your background screening program. Also hearing how complex it can be sometimes. to build out a policy and a process as it relates to background screening. It can be really tricky in one country, let alone the whole world. And so making sure that you're selecting partners that can help you with that. One of the things that we really appreciated about the whole selection process with Joe and the team at LEGO Group was how robust it was. And we really felt the values-driven aspect of that. So looking for a partner that can balance the technology, the service delivery, as well as understanding really what it is you're trying to achieve. And focusing on candidate experience everywhere.
Yeah.
Consistent experiences, equivalent outputs, we heard that. Regardless of where that candidate is or what they're doing, and making sure that there are clear expectations around why this process is happening, because otherwise it can feel like a barrier. It can feel like an unnecessary burden of complexity. But actually, I heard you say that your candidates moving through the process with LEGO Group appreciate this part of the process because it informs the values at that a critical point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, that is that's the story.
Yeah, that's our journey so far. Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe is here. So if you have any questions, please feel free. There's a roaming mic if you would like to ask a question. I know that there have been potentially questions coming in. I'll just double check over here as well.
Sure. Thank you. Hi. Yes. Do we have a mic? I can hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So the question was about the linkage between the LEGO Group and some global charities. Do you mean specifically from a safeguarding point of view or our partnerships? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So the question's about how we share this experience basically. And today is one of the starting points of that. We've literally just gone live in our last global region. And now it's about how we share this story, how we share this knowledge that we have come up with along the way. We are partners with UNICEF, and through that partnership we have links in then to relationships with people like Save the Children, and also with much more local, home-based charities in different countries. So yeah, I mean, part of the whole point of this work as well is to develop a playbook and to develop a guide. We do already have a child safeguarding and business practices guide that we developed in partnership with UNICEF. But to be a lot more vocal about the LEGO Group bringing the brand to that, and then that will give UNICEF and Save the Children and other not-for-profits that kind of brand-driven platform to say, here's the LEGO Group, they've done it, this is also how you can do it. We do have a community of practice in place with some other companies like IKEA, John Lewis, who have children as end customers. But there certainly isn't a one-size-fits-all. I mean, we're not able just to say, here's a process or a workflow, implement that. Everyone has to find their own why and their own journey, but we're very much about sharing the knowledge and sharing that information. Yeah. Thanks for the
it's
question.
A great question. And at Sterling, we've noticed a significant uptick actually in non-governmental organisations and charities, third sector organisations, looking to us for some guidance around this too. So we've done some work with Joe and the team around case studies. We've also got helpful resources like policy checklists. So we obviously can't give an organisation a policy, but we can give a framework and a set of questions that help you, guide you through how to put those things in place. We're actually situated just there. All the bright coloured people stood up there. That's our stand, B50. So if you would like to come and have a look at some of those resources, some of the tools that are available, and if you have people within your network that you know are struggling with this exact same challenge, then feel free to put them in touch. And between Joe and myself, we can absolutely tell the story again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely.
Great.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you so much.